Hey guys, Whitney here, and welcome to TEFLPros. On today's call, I sat down with our recent grad, Kelly, to discuss her experience on the course. Now, one thing that I love about Kelly is that she really dove into her TEFL experience. She attended the coaching calls, she asked tons of questions, and she even did volunteer teaching as she was going through her TEFL experience. So I really think that if TEFL has been something on your mind, if it's something that you've been considering, just hearing Kelly's perspective on what this has been like to come from, no teaching experience to being prepared to step out there in the real world and be a teacher, I think it'll prove very valuable for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy hearing about Kelly's experience on the TEFL Pros Plus course. Hey, Kelly.
Hi, Whitney. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks so much for hopping on a call today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Kelly is our most recent graduate. Congratulations on completing the course. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Kelly has been a very active participant, so I feel like we're buddies. Like we see each other every week on coaching calls.
It's very good.
If she doesn't come on a coaching call, I'm like, man, I didn't get to see Kelly this week.
I try to get you your fix.
Yeah, so I feel like you're gonna have some perspective here because you really hopped in with both feet, you dove into the course and you've had the full experience. You haven't shied away from anything. So Kelly, maybe you could just start out by sharing with folks where you were at prior to taking your TEFL course.
Well, during the pandemic, I accidentally started learning Portuguese. That's something that happened to me during the pandemic. And I started doing language exchange calls where we would do part of the time learning Portuguese and part of the time learning English. And I discovered that I really found teaching English to be very rewarding, very fun. I like getting to know other people, getting to know other cultures. And I was very sorely in need of a career change anyways. And so after somebody told me, you're actually you're a better teacher than the tutor that I paid for online, I suddenly was like, you know what? I could do this. So here I am.
I love that. I love that you had this just natural experience of hey, I want to learn a language. And then you started working with your language exchange partners and that morphed into a new career path for you.
Not something I ever thought that I would do, but life is really weird. So here I am. Yeah.
And I think you've got a real natural affinity for it. You're a great communicator. So it's so nice to see when those things come together, Awesome. So you went through that experience, then you're like, maybe I should start tutoring or teaching English. What was next? What came after that step?
I realized that I had nothing going for me besides the natural affinity and that I like it, and that I enjoy working with people. So I was like, I think I could be good at this. I can see myself doing this. It's something I could do for a long time. I could be, continue to be interested in it for a long time. And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm gonna need some education. So, I Google and I find that, the TEFL course is the thing to do to get yourself that education that you need. And so I started, looking for TEFL courses.
Okay. And was that a simple process for you, Kelly?
Not super simple. There is so many out there. And how do you know? Because, I don't want to just be an English teacher. I want to be a good English teacher, right? So I wanted a course where I would actually learn how to do it and learn how to be good at it and learn how to continue improving myself. I always want to be continuing to improve, continuing to grow. So in the TEFL world, there's a lot of courses where it's like they almost say it outright in the advertisement, where they're kind of like, get your 120 hours quick and we give you the certificate and then you're on your way. And that is, you know, nothing against any particular one out there, anything, just I wanted a little bit more support than just like taking a video course, because what do you do when you run into problems? What do you do when you have questions? And a lot of these places offer email support at best, you know, and so for me, one of the things that really stood out to me about TEFL Pros was the coaching calls. And like you said, I took full advantage of those and intend to continue showing up and doing so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please do.
So I really got a lot out of those. You know, having a real human being, not just to answer my questions, but actually, you know, on those calls, we all watch how you teach, you know, we're all watching you, and, you know, being able to experience being on the receiving end of good instruction from an experienced person, I found that to be really super useful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is funny how I feel like, because Kelly, you've joined so many coaching calls, like you can really start to see those different layers to it, where it's like, at first it's like, oh yeah, I've got a question, I'm getting an answer. And then the deeper into it you go, you're like, oh, she's using that technique that like I just read about, or that, and hopefully that helps, you know, start to build your confidence with different skills. So I love that you had that experience, you know, going through this process. So I take it that when you were doing your research, you were looking, like you said, so for a more personalized experience, you wanted to be able to get support when you needed it. Was there anything else in particular that you were like, oh, I'd rather have something like this, or I'd rather avoid something like that? Was there anything else kind of on your checklist?
Yeah, there was one other thing that really stood out to me about TEFL Pros, and that was the total lack of obnoxious, we're the best there is kind of style of marketing. Because there is a lot of that on the internet, and there's a lot of that in American culture in general, right? Like, we are the best. And there's this kind of like underlying tone in our culture, like if you don't say you're the best, maybe you're not. And honestly, I think TEFL Pros doesn't need to say that they're the best. So you guys just, you're like, here's the course. We have a good course. You don't have to like it, but it is a really good course. So I think that that really stood out to me, where you guys weren't like, we are the most awesome. You were just kind of like, here's the course. Here's what you're going to learn. This is what it's going to be like. Have a free 2-day trial and test it out and see what you think. And that to me was really like, made me feel like, you're just honest people, you know, like you don't, you know, you're not just like trying to put out a video course so that you just sit back and make lots of money from it, you know, and B, that, you know, you don't say that you're the best because, you know, you maybe are, right? You don't need to, right? So that's what I felt like. I felt like, really more at home. No, guys, I got my certificate. I got my certificate already.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Kelly. And I appreciate where you're coming from with it, because I do get what you're saying, that like the marketplace is really saturated. And so it's like, how do you even discern what is out there when you're going through that process? So I'm glad that, like, okay, taking a peek at the material, hopping on a call, like things like that just helped you navigate that process a little easier. That's our hope, obviously, is to make it as easy as possible. So then once you were actually on the course, I know we've talked a bit about like coaching calls and how that went. Was there anything else just about the experience of being a part of our program that stands out to you, or that you would like to share?
Yes, I made a list.
Kelly's very prepared, guys. She's very
I'm ready
prepared.
for this.
She's ready to be a teacher. She's like made a lesson plan for
I'm rocking that organizer hat right
yes,
now.
yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay, tell us your list. We're ready.
So one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot as I'm getting towards the end of the course is how sneaky that your setup is. You have this laid out where like everything is really like kind of bite-sized, you know, you make it like you break down this 120-hour course with, you know, like this kind of really big, you know, course content. There's a lot of material covered, and it's like broken down so that it's like every time that I start to feel overwhelmed, like, how am I ever going to get to the end of this? You know, it's like, okay, well, just do it one module, one unit at a time. It's all broken down, you know? And each unit, each module isn't really that long, you know? You get into it and you're like, okay, I just, you know, it's like I watch this video, I read this thing, I do this assignment, and then I keep going forwards. But guys, there's layers here. I am finding as I like spending more time gaining experience and continuing to come to the coaching calls, that in each module, there's more than meets the eye. There's parts of it that you know, like the first time you read it, you just sort of like, you know, it's not the important thing at that moment. And so you focus on something that is important to you at that moment. But then later, I find myself going back, rereading the same material and pulling out new focus points, and finding new value, finding more value in material that, you know, I covered already, I learned already. Yeah, and there's several layers. So I've been just really enjoying that. It's very deceptive how simple that it is. It's not so simple as it looks, and I think that makes it very like elegant. It's very elegant. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I remember we had that experience, like, wasn't it a couple of weeks ago, where we were on a coaching call and you asked us to go back to module 1.
Yeah. And I
And
was
I
like in
love
11.
that.
Yeah.
Like, so Kelly was like right at the end of the course, just to give you guys some perspective. And she asked to go back to module 1 because there were some elements of reflection there early on where she was like, oh my gosh, like now when I look back at that, my perception has changed. And I have like more questions or more thoughts on that. And that's just so valuable. I think it's really valuable for your classmates that were maybe just starting out, to like see kind of like big sister Kelly, who's, you know, oh, you know, she's further along the path than they are. And it's like, oh, well, she's coming back to my module and she's like digging in deeper. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Kelly really like, she took this stuff, you know, to heart, and she's really working through it, which is awesome to see. I love it when people are really engaged in the experience. Is there anything else on the list?
There is.
Okay.
I wanted that actually, you kind of led me into it. I really felt like I grew as a person during the course. I felt like there's for everybody, you know, being a teacher is like it's like an enormous role, really. There's so, you know, so many different roles within it. And all of us are going to be good at some and not so good at some. And I felt like the course helped me to recognize what will I automatically be good at? And these things will probably change over time, right? What will I automatically be good at? And what am I automatically not so good at? And what do I need to work on? And being able to recognize those things, name those things, and then not just finding out, but also within the course, for all of those things, there is in there like what to do for the things that you're not good at. You know, so for me, I'm going to need to work on things like pacing and chunking and, you know, focusing on packing on that student talking time instead of me talking time. So like I learned this, right? You know, like what will I need to work on? And that's really good because then that means that I can start off my teaching career stronger because I already know where some of my weaknesses lie, and everybody's going to have some strengths and some weaknesses. And so being able to start off my career already knowing what some of those weaknesses are, I think is really a boon. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That self-reflective element is so important because if you start getting the hang of it on your TEFL course, then once you step into a role as a teacher and you have those moments of like, that didn't go the way I had hoped, or, you know, this student reacted differently to how I thought they might. Instead of just sitting with it, you can hopefully process it. You know, after the fact, you can take those few minutes and hopefully walk yourself through, you know, a reflective process that is then helpful rather than just feeling, you know, let down by that or beating yourself up, you know, too much. Like, yeah. So I love that you're already going through that on your own. Yeah, that's incredible.
And then being able to know what to do about it. Like, okay, this didn't go the way that I was thinking it was going to go because I didn't chunk it properly, you know. And so even when things do go wrong, knowing what they were, being able to identify what they were, and also having some, you know, some idea of how to fix it, you know, is really super super helpful for me. I feel like the TEFL course gave me like a structure and sort of like a framework, like a almost like a safety net or sort of like a self check. I'm very creative, so that's a strength. Also, if you go too creative, right, you know, that can become a weakness, right? So I felt like the lesson planning structure and like it is this way, and then within that you get to be creative. I felt like that was super helpful for me. Takes away some anxiety for me, and it will help me to sort of like self-check myself. Like if my activity doesn't fit into the way that the lesson plan is supposed to be, maybe that activity doesn't go here, or maybe that activity, you know, maybe there's a reason we should not do that activity. Just because it's a really fun, really great idea doesn't mean that it's going to actually teach something. And we always want to add value, right? So yeah.
Oh, well said. Well said. Yes. All right. Well, anything else that you'd like to share before we move on to our next
I'm
one?
not done.
You're not done yet. Okay.
I'm not done yet.
Guys, I don't know how long this list is. So, you know, we're winging it here. So
what did I say? I like to talk. I know I like to talk. but it's important. It's important. I have two more things that are really important to say.
Awesome.
First one is that I wanted to say that I did have times of frustration when I was on the course. I had moments where I was like, this doesn't make sense. Or I had moments where I was like, why didn't she tell me that first, right? But
I remember some of those moments.
You remember some of them where I was just like, but now I have to go back and redo it all. But there's a reason that it's like that. There's always a reason that it's like that, because it is through those moments of frustration that we learn and remember the best. When we have to go through something, we learn it better, you know. And we want that for our students too. We don't necessarily, like, we're not aiming to frustrate our students, right? But we're not aiming to like spoon feed, you know, because when information is just given to you, you know, you don't actually retain it, you don't learn it, you know. So having that in the course, I thought, also set that apart from people who are like, here you go, watch the videos and get your certificate and off you go. You know, built into it is like, you know, a few things. And I've gotten to watch other students work through those same moments too, where it's like some of those really important things are not necessarily written out word for word in the course, because you need to experience it in order to learn it. And so I thought that was really very maturely done, masterfully done. I'm going to teach English. I'm not sure how I want to say this.
Well, just hearing you talk about that process, Kelly, really brings to my mind a challenge that a lot of people early on in their TEFL experience have, or even when they're going through that research process of like, what kind of certification am I looking for? And that is, they may be thinking that just being handed a big stack of lesson plans is far more desirable than learning how to lesson plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the surface, it just sounds appealing. It's like, yeah, I can just hand those to me and I'm good to go. And actually, we know, like, I mean, you're at this point.
Eventually, it won't work, right? Eventually, you'll run into a class or you'll run into a topic that your canned lesson plan won't work for. So then what are you going to do? Yeah.
And pretty much any school or environment you're stepping into, they're going to have their own way of doing things. They're going to have their own textbooks, their own materials. And so, even though at times it's really frustrating and not everything clicks right away, but being able to have that perseverance to go through the process and learn the skill rather than just reading the material and just like having some paperwork to take with you is really going to serve you much more. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I remember those moments where Kelly there was one in particular where she hopped on a call and she's like, I almost wanted to like send you an email and be like, Whitney.
Whitney, why is it like this?
I like this, And they were like, but then I like stuck with it for a couple more days and I was like, oh, that's why. Okay.
There were places where it had to like percolate, it had to percolate. Yeah.
Oh, well, what's last on the list, Kelly?
The last thing is Whitney. Guys, Whitney is I just want to say to you guys, Whitney is just like a top shelf human being. I genuinely don't think that she's like, okay, here, let's just make this video course and it's going to sit there on the internet and just like make me lots of money. She's just not like that. She genuinely like wants to make the world have more awesome teachers. And you can just tell that, you can feel that. And just watching you, teach us has been so valuable. Just getting to like experience your experience really taught me a lot. Watching you teach me, watching you teach other students, just it's like its own little observation video, and so like your experience and your knowledge base comes through really clear. And so I just really enjoyed having the course with you and having you as a teacher and having that like genuine experience of a real person who actually cares. It really makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Okay. I'm going to move on now because she's making me she's making me a little teary, guys. She still has to hop on coaching calls. She's not done with us yet. Okay.
No, it ain't over. You're still stuck with me another 315 days. I just checked.
Okay. Good. We're happy to be stuck with Kelly coming on lots of coaching calls because she's awesome. Yeah. And you've been such a joy to work with, like I can't say it enough that just the fact that Kelly has really embrace the process. Maybe that's I've been struggling to put a word with it, but she's really embraced this journey. And she hasn't delved into it too much on this call, but guys, she's been doing a lot of volunteer teaching and like working with her language exchange partners in that capacity. And so she's been lesson planning like on her own as she's going through the course. And you got to give yourself a lot of credit there, Kelly, for like really going above and beyond as you've been going through this process. And I think that's why you've had such a rich experience, because you have taken that on. You've really taken on that responsibility. So awesome job. Do you have any last words of advice, any words of wisdom to folks out there that are like, I don't know, I'm thinking about getting TEFL certified, but I'm just not 100% sure yet?
I think, you know, investing in your education is always an investment in yourself, right? So that's always going to be a good thing. You can't, nobody can take it away from you once it's done. I think even if you actually didn't end up teaching English, you'll still come away with something that you can use in your life just for communicating more clearly, if nothing else. So I think it's a good investment.
Good words of wisdom, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.